Good evening, everybody. It's Monday, January 25th, 2021. Name is Mike Langford, heylangford.com and DearBands. Welcome back to another episode of DearBands Live. Just wondering what happened to my tunes there for a second. Thought I'd all queued up. DearBands Live, the podcast that explores the paths and stories of career-minded artists and music industry professionals. Very special guest tonight, episode 18. Singer, songwriter, multi-instrumentalist, 1/3 of Canadian roots pop supergroup The Good Lovelies, and 100% of my guests tonight. I see her at the door, taking her shoes off, Canadian way. Without further ado, Miss Caroline Brooks. Caroline?
Hi.
How's it going?
Good. I love taking my shoes off at people's houses. It's a thing.
It's funny to Canadians because I don't think Americans notice it.
I've gotten into like a few Twitter arguments about this. Like, I think that taking your shoes off is like a super nice thing to do, and I always find it weird to wear my shoes in summer.
It is weird. It's a weird thing.
But an American friend said to me that it's because we have really inclement weather here, and I was like, really?
Yes.
Is that the reason? Could be.
No, it's definitely a thing. Like every bone in my body is like, don't walk into someone's house with your shoes on, unless they're moving.
Oh, that's
different. Then it's different because it's kind of like no one's place in a way.
It's true.
At that point.
It's true.
But yeah, it's funny. Do you have like indoor shoes or slippers?
I actually am wearing them right now. Yeah.
Do you ever wear them outside and then when you come back in, you take them off to reset them?
Yep. It's like what are we doing now with like our groceries for a few days after you buy them? You put them away for 2 days to make sure they're clean.
Make sure they're
COVID clean.
I remember wearing, because I had like my house shoes and then they're like studio shoes. And I remember wearing them to go do groceries one time. And I felt like I was doing groceries in like slippers. And I felt really weird in them. Because I didn't think about it. I just it was summertime and I just like walked outside and got in the car and left. And I'm just like, what's on my feet? Like, those like slippers have like the bear claws and stuff on them.
It was not those.
No, but it felt like I was wearing those. Like to me, that's what I felt like I was wearing.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're feeling. That's funny.
But yeah, it's a funny observation with Canadians and Americans that the shoes on thing. But good observation with the weather. So Caroline, there's a lot I want to cover tonight. Do you want to tell people kind of how you started in music and kind of you got to where you are today in music?
Yeah,
it'll meander.
It's a lot. It'll definitely meander a bit. But the short story is that my dad is a singer-songwriter, and my parents had a band together when I was growing up. And they like to joke that they had kids so they could have backup singers in the band. It's a little cheaper not just to hire people, in my opinion. So I grew up in this really musical household, and my dad, he quit the road when I was a kid, and so he could be home with us. And he taught private guitar lessons in the house. And he brought me home my first guitar when I was 6. And I started off playing classical and was a terrible student. I think could have been a great classical guitar student, but I was just a really bad student with my dad, and didn't really show a ton of interest until I realized I could like write really sad ballads when I was a teenager. So I started, tuning my guitar to open tunings and playing. Also, I will say I had like all these beautiful guitars of my dad sitting around. So I was like spoiled. Wasn't like playing some shitty Yamaha with like action that's high. I had like a 1964 D28. Yeah. Anyways, it's ridiculously spoiled. And that's sort of how it's cultivated. And my sister and I decided to break free from the family band. We started a duo called the Brooks Sisters. And we played for quite a few years, just like small folk gigs around, and opened for Ron Sexsmith and played like the Barrie Folk Festival. And then I met Carrie O and Susan Passmore, my current bandmates, in the early 2000s, and we sort of had this affinity and sang together, and that part of my life sort of took off. So I'd been working day jobs, and I always thought I would do music, but I couldn't really see a path to it financially, like figure out how to do it. But that trio, the combination of the three of us, really, it just like, it took off. It took over our lives. It's almost like I wasn't thinking about it. As all of a sudden we were at that stage where we were like, either we were going to do well at our day jobs or we were going to do well at music, because we were playing all the time. Every weekend we were, auditioning for folk festivals and making music together. And we all decided to quit our day jobs. And that was almost 15 years ago. So the three of us sort of held hands and leapt in together. And that has been my great journey for the last decade and a half. And I do a ton of other singing and playing with other people, but my primary thing is Good Lovelies. And I'm so grateful for it because it's the best. It's so fun. It's so fun, and it's such a challenge. And I mean, it's really, really such a gift.
It's just a backtrack. It's interesting, the musical family, coming, because I feel like that can really go either way. Because like a lot of the time in sports, if you come from like a sports family, that's all you do. And there's no doubt in the mind from the parents usually like, that's what you're going to do.
And
with musicians, like I feel like it's really on the fence if I don't know if they would discourage it, but you know what I mean? Like just not sure if they would support it because they might know how difficult it is.
That's a great observation. I will be completely honest that there was a certain heaviness around music growing up. Like my dad is such a great songwriter and incredible, great songwriter, great guitar player, great singer. And my mom has got the most beautiful voice, but there's always like, I wasn't totally sure if it was my path. And I found it was my path when I really figured out where I fit. And I also have kids. And I understand what you're saying because I don't force music on my kids. I certainly encourage it. Like when my son is sitting down at a piano or playing, or we're like making up songs all the time, but I'm not pushing it down their throat because I think you can find joy in so many different ways. And if my child wants to be an engineer, like go for it. Like even though I hope they have music in their life and I hope it's really important to them, and it always will be, obviously, because their mom, I like live and breathe music all the time, but yeah, that's an interesting observation. I have a really good friend named Ben Whiteley. He's a bass player, and the Whiteley family is this like folk icon family. Ken Whiteley, Chris Whiteley. Yeah, there's so many of them. And he used to play. He plays bass with me sometimes. And he told me growing up, everyone would ask him, "What are you gonna play when you grow up?" And he would look them in the face and he'd say, "Baseball." I just love that.
No, it's a good point you brought up. The idea of like not shoving it down the kids' throats to like do music or to like music, or because I'm sure you've had this question: when should my kid get into music lessons? And my answer is always like, it's accessibility. If like have the instruments around. Because like if you tell a kid to go play piano, because I never wanted to take piano lessons and I regret it because it'd be super handy.
I wish I did too.
Yeah, but the thing is, it's like my older brother had a keyboard, a Yamaha keyboard, and like I would put the headphones on and mess around with it and try to figure things out with it. So I didn't want the lessons, but to have the accessibility to the instruments. And when you come from a musical household, that's a huge edge that a lot of kids can have. And I would say too, even with parents out there, even if you're not a musician or into music, have a guitar and have a piano, those two, and drums. Just have a couple of those instruments around just to give the access to it. And just kids are generally pretty creative. Like just give them the space.
Yeah, I also feel that way about like recording equipment too. Like we've been homeschooling our kids a lot, which we could talk about for a while, but we won't. And like in the spring, I was teaching them like have Logic, and was just doing like some stuff and showing them a little bit about it and playing even just with my USB mic because I don't want to set up my nice one for them. But just that kind of stuff you're right. Just like having access to it without feeling. I mean, I do think there's important in discipline too. Like I was a really disciplined dancer when I was a young kid and a teenager. And I think that was really good for me. I mean, it suited me personally, but I do think there's importance in discipline and rehearsal and lessons.
Yes, the next step.
But it's figuring, I'm still struggling. Like I'm looking at my children and I'm like, I don't want to shove this down your throat, but I also want you to have access to it, especially when you're young, because it's so easy to learn when you're little,
Yeah. No, it's just it's interesting. It's an interesting question. Just like, you know, once you get into lessons and stuff, it's like accessibility. But also these, like, it's funny because like 10 minutes ago we were talking about sometimes we can just take a left-hand turn with these conversations.
We've done that.
But the thing is, it's like the educational resources we have right now.
Yeah.
Like, just imagine if you're 14 and you can go on YouTube and find how to do anything. You know, it's one thing to go to a website and have to read about stuff, but now it's like, how do you record in Logic? Go on to YouTube and you can find tons of resources. And it's just like, if you're young, or not say if young, but it's like, if you're hungry to learn about something,
you can.
And make the time, you know, make the time to figure some of this stuff out. And it's like, you know, with kids, not a lot of kids are paying bills and, you know, worrying about getting up, you know, to do the 9 to 5 and stuff like that. So like that time goes somewhere.
Yeah.
You know, so
yeah, that's a really good point. A little overwhelming how much info there is, you know?
Well, yeah, the analysis paralysis, that's another thing too. Where you just keep thinking about what you want to do and learning the stuff. And it's like, just get out there and start doing something.
Yeah. Yeah, totally.
So the musical family. Okay. That's interesting. I did not know that. Getting to the Good Lovelies. So like your first show, was that like was that intended to be a one-off, or was something kind of bubbling there and you're like, let's just test the waters with it? And
yeah, so our first show was December 2006, and it was at the Gladstone Art Bar in Toronto. And we decided to set it up like in a round. So we were treating it like a folk festival workshop. So each one of us would play a song, tell a story, play a song, tell a story, play a song. And it was around Christmas time. And we decided to collaborate, I think, on 3 or 4 Christmas songs. And I just remember like each of us playing our sad bastard early 20s, like 5-minute ballads about like this. Like, they're all the same. It was just... And then we played like God Rest You Merry Gentlemen in 3-part harmony with like this old swing style. And I remember my now husband was there, and we finished and he was like, those upbeat songs were fun. I was like, I know, I could tell by the way the audience reacted. It was, but beyond that, the first time we rehearsed, we played together in Carrie's basement apartment in downtown Toronto. And I remember we'd all been like in choirs in high school and in university. And we came together and we sang a song called Lo How a Rose. It's this beautiful, like old Christmas, not a super well-known Christmas song, but very chorally. And we each had sung different parts. Like I sang the second soprano, and there was soprano and then alto, and Sue was on alto, and we sang it. And I just remember like all the hairs on my arms just going, like, literally, I was like, whoa, this is so special. So obviously 1,000 shows later and, 10,000 hours or whatever, like we have an innate way of singing together and it's really special. But even that very first time, we was really clear there was a very interesting blend with our voices that, I sang with my sister, so I'd often had that experience already, and singing with your family, those like family voices that blend so beautifully. And then to find it in 2 women that I deeply care about as well, it was just really cool. So yeah, it took our lives away just like that. We auditioned for 2 folk festivals. The next summer we got into both. And one of them actually paid for our first EP, which we recorded in my parents' basement. And then we made a full-length record in 2009, and that went on to win the Juno record the next year, which was pretty fun and very unexpected. So yeah, we've just like been swept away by it.
I just want to say for congrats on the Juno.
Thanks.
AKA the Canadian Grammys.
Yeah.
For American friends. So with Carrie and Sue, you were friends before.
Yeah, so I actually gave Sue guitar lessons, which is funny. Sue and I met through a mutual friend. She was like, you're a singer, you should meet. And that's how we met. And Sue introduced me to Carrie. She lived with Carrie for a while, and they grew up together. They were like in a grade 2-3 split class. So there's a lot of history there. And I kind of knew Carrie, but not really. And, but very quickly knew Carrie.
So you know each other before. You're rehearsing for a few of the Christmas tunes. The vibe from that, did anyone talk about things while you were rehearsing, or did you kind of like have like a, 2-day rule after, and then like, I think there was something else going on there when we were singing those songs, like, because you're 3 artists.
Yeah, so long. It's so long ago. So interesting to think about that. Like, I just remember that visceral reaction. I don't remember if we were like, wow, guys, this is really cool. I think we must have, because we had really regular rehearsals, and we'd have these. We're also just having so much fun. Like, we didn't give a shit. We didn't give a shit. Like, we're like, okay, let's do a residency at the Cameron House. And every week had a theme. And one theme we'd be like, back to school. And each of us would dress like a different teacher. Like, I was a science teacher. And at the set break, I'd go out and I'd do a science experiment with the menthol and the like pop and like blow stuff up. And Carrie would like be an English teacher and read from her old diaries. It was just ludicrous. Like, I think that's what made it special for us at first, is that we just totally, we have to take ourselves a little more seriously now because it's like our full-time job. But at the time, we each had decent jobs that were paying the bills, and we were just having so much fun. But it was like a year later when we were like, okay, this is really serious. Like, it's going well. We're playing festivals. Like, we're in our mid-20s. If we're going to do this, we got to do this now before, we have houses and babies and blah, blah, blah. So it was I will tell you, when we made that decision, it was a really like serious decision to say, I'm quitting my job, which has a lot of security and like RSP contributions and like all that stuff. Like, we had grown up jobs. It wasn't like we were coming out of high school or at a university and just like going straight into it. Like, it was like a decision we had to make. So yeah, it was intense, but also like, I will say that Sue and I quit our jobs and Carrie took a leave of absence though. So we were like, wait a second.
It's like you come back to the meeting. So everyone quit their jobs today. Sort of.
Kind of.
Yeah. Like, I'm not there, but like the door is still. So it was a bit of a gradual change, and then you felt like maybe the chapter turned when everyone decided to quit their jobs and go all in on it. So there's 3 of you. Excuse me. There's 3 of you. I don't know, my throat's all messed up. There's 3 of you in the band. I know what it's like when there's 2 people in a band that have to make decisions. I know what it's like when there's 1 person in a band to make decisions, because it's easy to have a conversation between 2 people, but with the 3 of you deciding to go all in, it kind of sounds like it was an obvious choice. Well, aside from Carrie, it sounds like this, but as far as making that decision and going all in, what was the vibe like with the 3 of you? Was it trying to split things 3 ways? Because if you try to vote 3 ways,
yeah, it can. Although I will say, Mike, there's always a tiebreaker. It's kind of nice because you can't be necessarily split. I mean, you could each have your own view on things, but
yeah,
that is a good question. We have like the approach with Good Lovelies, which I think has been a reason why our band is going into its 15th year. Like, we're in our year 15 right now. It's really equal. It's divided very equally in terms of work roles. We each play a different role in the band, from a management, logistical, design side, and promotions, etc. And then internally, creatively, we share all credits for everything. So the band is very split 3 ways, very egalitarian in a lot of ways. And we've mostly had, our career mostly has been completely independent, like even without a manager. So until we had a manager a while ago, and now recently have just signed with a new manager, which is really nice. But yeah, we don't feel the burden of decision making on our own, and it's very team focused. I was actually just doing some emailing before this, and I responded to an email, and I was like, I can't make this decision without the team. And I mean, in some cases we can, like, there are certain things that we each take care of, and we know and we trust that the other person, you know what I'm saying. But we are very team oriented. Like, every single week we have a meeting and we talk about the band and our projects and our future and what's working, what's not working. And yeah, it's pretty cool. We take it pretty seriously, I say, but also have a ton of fun. So yeah, it's nicely balanced that way.
How long are those meetings, the weekly meetings?
1 to 2 hours. Yep. It's pretty brief. We have a lot of other responsibilities right now. Yeah, going on with kids and homes and everything.
What gets covered though in that 1 or 2 hours?
Task lists, decision making around like upcoming stuff, like how we're going to approach certain things. Like if we have a project on the go, we'll go through, certain decisions we can't just take on our own, or that it just is too slow to do by email. We try to have creative meetings, strictly creative, and try to keep that separate, because sometimes like to have your brain doing logistics and creative in one meeting, it's just not fun. So yeah, it's any range of things, whatever people need to write to cover. We set up a Google Doc agenda beforehand, and people just throw it's like a brain dump. Let's cover it quick, what needs to be. And then we follow up all week by email usually, and then separate phone calls too, if we need to.
Just want to say Google Docs and spreadsheets.
I know.
Everyone's got access to it.
Yeah.
Everyone's got access to it. It's super easy. No, I think that's good. And I was curious because my band Tense Machine, we do the same thing on Mondays at noon. We have a meeting.
It's awesome.
And we cover stuff for an hour, and I'm usually just throwing out some business side of things. And then we do separate if we have some lyrics to work on or anything. Like we'll do that later on. So it's not like here's spreadsheets and not fun stuff. Let's work on this pre-chorus. No, I think that
you guys write over do you write over Zoom or whatever?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, again, it's like everyone brings song ideas in the middle, and we'll demo stuff up and we'll pass it and just email. But when we're working on lyrics and stuff, we'll just hop on StreamYard for a little bit, throw ideas around. That. Or we just have our lyrics sitting in a Google Doc. So if you have ideas, just kind of shove them in there, and you can go through it later.
I love that.
That works. I wanted to talk about that because the meeting thing, because there's a lot of bands more bands than artists, because artists need to take care of themselves. But with the bands, they don't set aside the time to talk about business. They just want to they want to have the fun, but they don't want to have the work part of it. And I've had on the producer side of things, I've had some sit downs with bands where we start talking about budgets and stuff, and it's like they tune out. It's like they don't want to talk about the bigger picture of things, of releasing stuff, or this is in the before times, or like a tour, how we want to do some of these things. And it's like, there's people complaining that they can't do much the last year. And it's like, you can still communicate. You can still, get your minds together. And we're not in the same room right now, but we might as well be, in a way, because we're still able to see each other. We're still able to have a conversation, so just to say that you can't get together with people these days, we're seeing live streaming shows, it's like you can still it's just different, but we're still communicating. We're still able to engage with each other. But with bands, it's good to hear that you've, the Good Lovelies as part of the business. It's like you've set aside the time to just talk about the business, because it is a business. If you don't talk about the business, it's probably going to fail.
Yeah.
So
I also just don't understand not wanting to talk about your business, because it's going to affect your life so much. So much of my interest in being involved specifically, my role in the band has been booking and logistics and that kind of tour management role in the last few years, particularly. Well, a lot, even earlier on the first tour we did a lot of that stuff too. I just like knowing what's going to happen. It makes for a nicer tour, makes for a better experience. And for me, being involved that way, when I show up at a venue and I know the name of the promoter and I know what the rider's going to look like, I'm going to put on a better show. I know just myself. So I don't often understand that argument of I just want to have the fun. And when you're are you going to have fun if you don't really know what's going on? Maybe that speaks to my personality too. But yeah, I love being involved in that stuff too. And the big picture, the project management, the understanding what this is going to look like. Some of the details I'm not interested in, but certainly want to have direct impact on what my future experience will be.
It's interesting with the logistics side, because you can usually, it's all about a balance with logistics. Because like some shows are good, some shows are less good. Some months are good, some months are less good. But it's like being able to see, are we on the way up, or are things on the way down, or are things just kind of breaking even right now? So with the job duties in the band, do you rotate, or do people kind of fallen into their roles now?
Mostly into our roles. Like very clearly, if we need an ad mat made, or we need a poster made, or there's some kind of design element or editing a video, Sue is our person. She's super good at that stuff. She's our visual kind of lead. She likes to also talk directly with, if we're recording, she likes to be really involved in the mix process too. I'm less interested in sitting in mix sessions. Like I love giving feedback, but I really don't want to spend that kind of time sitting in the room with a mixing engineer. Carrie's our finance person, and that's very clear. And that's a skill set that like, it's not that I don't want to do it, but I just think like there's been so many years where I've taken the lead with our booking and our planning in terms of like, and making relationships with promoters and our agent. It'd be weird for us to switch. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And there's also a lot of built-in trust. Like Carrie has so much trust. She works with our accountant, and she knows like she gets the bills paid, and there's so much trust there. And with Sue, I know visually I'm going to love what she's going to do because we've been doing it for so long. And also there's such honest feedback in the band too. Like we're not going to be hurtful, but we're not going to mince words over things that aren't working for us. So yeah, I can't imagine like, given our skill sets, like I'm not going to edit a video unless it's like my kids playing a stupid music video. Like I'm just not going to do that. I would like to have that skill set maybe at some point, but at this point, no. Yeah.
No, I think it's important. Again, like it's the having the multiple skill sets within a band, because it gives you leverage.
Yeah, totally.
And you have other people that are doing some of the bands I see are doing really well online these days. It's like, yeah, they have someone that's great with video, someone's great with visuals. And one of the things too these days, it's like, especially in the rock and metal scene, it's like people that have engineers in the band. Cause it's like, it's such an edge when you think about the cost of recording and just the comfort of recording and being able to, like, imagine you can record a song and go, well, it's not really coming together. Let's just not worry about it. Meanwhile, if you were paying, you'd be like, no, let's worry about that because we've already got money into that. So I think it's and I've mentioned it a couple times because like there's solo, like some of the biggest artists in the world are all solo artists, but there's so many bands that do really well because they've got that leverage of multiple people in the band. But then the artist starts putting a team together behind them. So it's like they start building leverage that way. So the band has 4 or 5 people in it, but now the artist has like a team of 10 people behind them. And I feel like with bands these days, it's like you can keep moving forward with that momentum with the different skill sets and the leverage within the band, and then still build that team out from there. So I feel like bands, like multiple people in a band, have a huge edge and advantage these days if you have people that have multiple skill sets.
Yeah. And
I've been trying to, encourage people, like, just because you like playing guitar doesn't mean that you can kind of just play guitar. Because if a band leader has to pick between a guitar player and a guitar player / photographer, they're looking at the / photographer, because like that's going to come in handy because you're building a team, and in the last year too, it's like some of us have had a little bit of downtime to learn other skills and pick other things up and add other things. It's like, again, we talked about it earlier. It's like YouTube is a great resource for learning some of these other skill sets. Again, with Good Lovelies, it sounds good that everyone's kind of settled into their lane in a way with what they can do. And then so the trust is there. That's really important too, especially once money's actually involved.
Oh yeah, for sure.
But anyway, end rant on that. I think it's great to hear that like everyone in the band is doing a little bit more. And I would say with some bands too, and I'd say with some musicians out there, if you are always having fun, look the other way for a second and go, what am I responsible for?
Yeah.
Because maybe you're not responsible for anything, and that's why you always have time for fun.
Yeah. I mean, don't we all want that eventually? But it's what you're saying is true. Like, I think I spent, not to digress, but on that topic of like gaining new skills, like I spent the early part of the pandemic just kind of resentful that I was going to have to learn how to do a lot of this, like getting a good microphone for these, online concerts or whatever, or learning, how to engineer my own stuff. Like at first I was just like, kind of, I don't want to do this. That was like, but now I'm just starting to accept that it's part of my future. I have to learn. I can't just say I'm a singer-songwriter, like I just want to be a singer-songwriter. I can't just do that. And I never have really. Like I've been saying, Good Lovelies, we've been doing so much more than just singing and songwriting for years. But the pandemic and virtual concerts in particular have brought a whole new level of accepting what it is that my job is. My job is no longer just this physical thing of going to places and playing shows for people and entertaining people in a room. It's not like that anymore. And it probably won't be for a really long time. Yeah.
Might be a bit. When was the first Good Lovelies live stream virtual concert? Summer?
No, it was before the summer. We did one in May.
Okay,
so we did one in May when we were still locked down.
That was the Zoom one?
That was the Zoom one, which the three of us were in different places. We were learning a lot about Zoom. It was pretty funny. And yeah, we couldn't be together. So we decided to make it kind of like this weird thing where we'd each play a song and then engage the audience as well. Because, one of the nice things about the Zoom platform is being able to actually, interact with your audience. So that was lovely. It was it's a big learning curve. Also, just for context, Good Lovelies fans are in the older category.
There were some moments. There's some good moments in that.
There's some great moments, and I will never forget them. But they're learning too, right? Like, so we had to be really forgiving of our audience, and also just being like really coaching them through it too. But they're learning. They're getting better, and we've done a few now. We did one in the summer that was by Facebook. We wanted to do a free one for people as well, non-ticketed, and that was a really nice experience too.
I just want to go back to the one, the live stream in May for a second.
Yeah.
We did watch that here. Watched that with my lovely wife, Jessica.
Yes.
Jessica. We did watch that here. And I will admit there was a bit of a bittersweet moment near the end. Because I think you guys you're wrapping up the show, and like I got this feeling, and maybe it kind of went through like through people on your end, like things were still getting worse. Mm-hmm. As far as like what was going on with the illness that YouTube doesn't like to say, there was issue, like things were getting worse, and it was like, it kind of sucked that like we can't get together, and there was so much love and like enjoyment, happiness, and just, making a bit of lemonade, you know what I mean? And it's just like, this is still good, but it sucks that we have to do this, but like, at least we're still trying to do this, but like, I really hope it doesn't get worse, like worse, and like that's the kind of the feeling that kind of went over, not to bring the vibe down here. But that's the vibe that kind of went over me. I'm just like, we're like, a lot of people are still trying to get through this right now and make something of this. And, I don't feel like it got worse. Like, I feel like there's a lot of issues down in the US, unfortunately, but, and around the world, but it's just like, we were still trying, and I have to, give props to everyone that was still trying to do shows and still trying to engage with their fans. And you said like it's an older audience for Good Lovelies fans, and it was hilarious because someone would sneeze, and all of a sudden the camera flips over to somebody else.
Stop unmuting yourself.
Yeah, you're just like,
I mean, partly that was us learning too about the platform. And
well, yeah, it was a moment in time, but it's just like I had a lot of feels at the end of that show, being like, that was cool, and it was fun, and it was a whole different way of interacting and entertaining, and that engagement that's there. Yeah. But at the same time, just like, wow, I really hope it doesn't get like worse. When I mean worse too, it's like musicians just deciding to pack it in and go, you know what, it's just not worth it. I
do think we're going to see a lot of that in the next 2 years. Like, I really do. I think that it's really challenging for a lot of people who might not have like the not the chutzpah, but like the knowledge base or the ability to figure it out. I don't know. I feel like I know you and I have talked about this in the past, new challenges around streaming, that we might not have the same exact viewpoint on this, but I think there are a lot of musicians who are, going to become contractors or go back to school and try to be teachers and stuff.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. It's a really unsustainable life for a lot of people.
Yeah,
I think we're lucky. We're lucky that in my group, I feel like we've been really lucky. We've been able to do a bunch of live streams and figure things out on the go, and we'll probably be okay. But it's definitely, there's moments where I'm like, oh, okay, this is going to be the long haul.
It's probably nice too having, the other core members of Good Lovelies to help support each other and encourage, because it's easy to get down on everything and be like, I don't want to do this. And I'm not, there's a lot of chores in doing, music as a career where you just need to, especially with social media these days. Yes. I saw you shared this to your stories, and my lovely wife's like, you need to go and reshare. I'm not good on Instagram. It doesn't, and they keep changing.
But someone in your band is, right?
No. We just post pictures, but we're not good with stories and stuff like that. But it's like, and they keep changing the app on me. So like, I feel like I get a hang of it. It's just, they change something, but there's lots of things to do, and it's easy to go, I'm not going to do the push-ups today. And then that snowballs into to other things. As far as just the day-to-day activities. Back with the live streaming thing for one more second. I can't remember who the actual quote was from, but it basically said, like, in the music industry, they're talking about, there's, CDs and records, and then like downloading showed up. And the way that he described it is just like, everyone rode horses, everyone made saddles, the car showed up one day, and either you started making car seats or you went out of business. And I feel like I still think we're going to get shows back. I think we're going to get some stuff back this summer, but I think it's going to be the summer after that people are going to be more comfortable going out and doing stuff. And, and there's certain hygiene things I hope we carry forward with.
Oh my
forever.
God. Yes.
Can make jokes. I'm not going to right now. But
I've just like had a lot of images go through my brain right now.
I joke about handshakes, like, because it's some people like real talk.
Honestly, the merch table, like we go to the merch table every time. We have never missed a merch table. I was like 8 months pregnant at the merch table. I was nursing a child at the merch table. Like, I think I've missed the merch table like 3 times in my career, of my 1,000 plus shows. And I'm not saying that like as a kudos to me. It's just part of our business model.
Part of the gig, yeah.
That's part of our gig. It's how we're accessible to people. And I hate putting it down into those words, but that's really what it is. But after this, we're going to have to rethink the merch table. Like, honestly, I don't know how we're going to do it anymore. We've been thinking about it a lot.
Yeah. No, I thought I've been thinking about that too, because I'm usually the one working merch. And it's just like the idea that, again, even back with the health stuff right now, it's like that 2-week asymptomatic like incubation period, that's a huge problem.
Yeah.
Because like you can get sick and then
be
not
on tour.
know you're sick. And and that's the thing. I think this, not to be super dark,
Debbie Downer,
but but it's just like, I think you're going to see some musicians, like especially some touring like acts, like, because you get your bus and you get your crew, you're going to see some illnesses go through them, and it's not going to be good. No. And part of me is just like, if we don't see that, there's something wrong with the science.
Well, we also lost this year some really great artists like John Prine, and like, I don't know, it's just, it's true. We're going to have to rethink it. We're going to have, I think there'll be some positives. Like you said, like, I really hope that green rooms get cleaned better. I mean, the theaters we're playing are pretty nice usually, but oh man, I'm sure we could swap a whole 2 hours about that one.
What Backstage looks like. The back with the horses and the car shut up thing. It's just like, I feel like there's an opportunity to learn a new skill set with the live streaming and way to make something happen with that. Because I do think that there is an income. There's a revenue source from the live streaming. It's just not as obvious as playing a show. There's tickets, you perform the show, the expirable happened, and then you can move on with it. I do think there's going to be more revenue streams for live streaming in the very, very near future. And even you're talking about your Cameron House residency, it's like the idea where like you can have a show where like you, not to say put skits in and stuff, but it's like you can be at home and still do a kind of a round thing. And also like, in another few years, like, cause you did it during the May live stream where you tried performing a song together to let everyone know what happens. And it's just like once we get, gigabit up, gigabit down internet, like we're going to keep getting quicker and quicker internet.
Yeah.
And eventually we won't have the delay. Yeah. And like, that's where it turns into a bit of a thing where, you could be streaming and then it could line it up and then spit it out on the other end and it'd be fine.
On that note, there's this trio in Toronto, jazz trio, Nathan Hiltz, Alex Pangman, and Drew Jarecka, and they do remote performances. And Nathan plays guitar, and he plays so rigidly in time, and they just do it, and they actually do it. And it's
live stream and it works.
They live stream it. And it's remarkable. But he has to really, the story I've been told is he just has to really stay ahead of it because it could go off the rails. but yeah, again, I think you're right. I think there's also like tech is changing all the time. There's different ways to approach it. Like we're about to go into this, we're going to start doing a Good Lovelies social hour. We can't be together right now. Numbers are too high in Ontario. So we're trying to figure out a way to connect with our audience. And what we're going to do is we're announcing it shortly. I'm letting the cat out of the bag. People will be able to pay a price, come in, spend an hour with us socially, and we're each going to play a song, whether it's a new song or whatnot. Anyways, I think there's ways to engage your audience in a way. It's just how long can we keep it up is the question.
Yes, because again, the business model that we've been working with involved touring and being able to release music, and you can still sell CDs and some vinyl and the merch and just
there's T-shirts.
There's a lot of stuff around that dance that worked financially, and it just, I don't want to say it caught fire at the beginning of last year, but it definitely got weird. It definitely got weird. Luke Scott, a commentary, said, wondering if virtual merch tables could be a thing for touring musicians.
Yeah, Luke, I think we're already doing that a little bit. We just did this big Christmas tour, and by Christmas tour, I say virtual tour. We did a series of Christmas shows, and we had someone moderating the chat throughout the show, and he was throwing up a link to our merch table. So people didn't have to leave the show. They could just click a link and a new box would show up. So that was kind of nice. That's one way to do it. Yeah.
Let's get into that. Let's get into that virtual holiday Christmas.
I'd love to.
Because my lovely wife and I, we've gone to it the last several years. I want to say last 10 years. Like it's been a long time. We've been going to see that. Was it Hughes Room?
We did one at Hughes, a couple of years at Hughes Room. Yeah.
I remember that. And then
that was a fun one. Yeah.
Yeah. All the way up to Danforth Music Hall. Brought my parents last year. They loved it. Thought it was fantastic.
Parents love every event.
So the virtual Christmas tour, was there any doubt that you would maybe not do it, or was it just, how do we do this?
Yeah. So we held on to the dates until it became aware. We realized like about June that we'd probably have to shift to an online format of some kind. I never really thought we wouldn't do a show. I had a feeling when we were first thinking about it, we thought, okay, we'll do one big show, either pre-tape, make a big splash, sell. The question is format. Are you going to sell tickets, or are you going to make it free for people by donation? And we spent a lot of time thinking about how we could serve our audience always, continue with the tradition. And for context, a big part of our life as Good Lovelies is spent doing Christmas tour every year. We did a really important tour with the Vinyl Cafe, which was a big radio show in Canada. And they did a big Christmas thing. So they brought us on the road, and we had already been doing a Christmas tour for a few years, but that really just propelled us into Christmas land. And we now play 10 to 20 Christmas shows in November, December every year across Canada, US. So we looked at our history as a band, and we thought it'd be really exciting if we could send a little love into the communities that had presented us so many times. So like places like London, Ontario, and Western Canada, like in Alberta through the Edmonton Folk Festival. So we found local partners, and each show benefited a different charity. And as well as the band, we needed to make some money it was a big production. It was a very expensive production. And then we also had, because we were here and we were in Toronto and we were doing this live stream thing, we were able to do some international Christmas shows for the first time, because usually we only get to the US. It's too hard to get to the UK or Australia. We have a great fan base in Australia. So we decided to do these 3 international Christmas shows. And it was super fun, and it worked out really well. And there was a lot of risk. I'm not going to lie. The 3 of us and our project manager, Tim Desilets, we had a lot of sleepless nights around whether we would sell enough tickets to make it work. But it was actually one of the loveliest community and connecting experiences I've ever had. I was really skeptical at first of whether we'd be able to capture that tradition and that, nostalgia around Christmas with this. I don't know. I wasn't sure if we could do it. And I really felt it. I felt it in the room. And I know from what I heard from people and what I saw that a lot of people felt it too. And there was I don't know, it was really special. It's so special.
Oh, it is a moment. And we watched the Toronto one here. And again, it's the vibe off stage. And again, it comes through the TV and it sounds great. And it's different seeing the dividers.
Yeah, that's definitely strange.
That's one of those things. But again, it's the sign of the times right now.
And actually, on that note, from an artist perspective, I did feel a rigidity in terms of I couldn't move over to my friend and play guitar with them and get close to them. But it had been so many months since we'd played with a band through a PA. It was just we were on in-ears. It was so pleasant, the whole thing. So I felt really connected. It was lovely.
You had the crowd through your ears?
Yeah, so we
and then you're looking out into the
void, total black. But the crowd, that was canned crowd, and that canned crowd we spent a lot of time thinking about do we want to have canned crowd, and 100% made a difference for the quality of the show and our reaction after the show. Because I went back and watched some footage. I'm like, oh my god, we look natural receiving that applause. You know what I mean? It's actually a great experience.
Yeah, no, it's good to add that in. So even not to bring it to sports for a second, but when they brought hockey back,
oh yeah,
they added the crowd in and
I've
stuff.
Been hearing that.
And it was weird, but it's when there's nothing, it's super weird.
Yeah, it's weird. It's totally great to have that.
And we watched the Hives are one of my favorite bands, and they're doing the world's first World Wide Web world tour right now. So they're doing 6 cities. They're doing their time zones. They did Toronto on the weekend, and they had the canned crowd, but also they had people send in their own voices that they could add in.
No,
so it was pretty funny. And then and then there was also they were talking to the chat. So in between songs, the phone would ring, and you'd go pick up the phone, and they'd have someone on WhatsApp, and they would chat with them so chatting with someone from Mexico, and it was just
cool.
Chaos. But it's things like that. You talk about that engagement. Yeah, and it's I don't know if that would work that well with your show to have people calling in, but the idea of the the chat, the live stream that you're talking about, it's you could have some of that stuff, that interaction there. And I think that's really valuable.
Yeah.
For the fans.
For sure. The chat is actually, I think, really important, because it's kind of I have a really amazing musical friend who says it's kind of like being at the Horseshoe Tavern when you're standing at the bar and you're not really listening to the band. So you're just talking to your friends in the chat. Yeah. You know what I mean? But I also think it's really connecting, because people knowing where you're from, and we went back and actually read the transcripts of every chat. There was 10 shows on that tour, and we got to see the smallest audience was our Australian show, which was at 5 a.m. Eastern. and we literally it was beautiful. They were just so into it. And it was a really active chat. And then we invited them to the final show of the tour as well, because they got the trio only, because we didn't want to get the guys up that early. So we brought them to the final show, and there was this whole back and forth about toques versus beanies. And it was it's awesome. So yeah, that connection I think is important as an audience member, as somebody who goes. I watch a lot of online shows with my friends, and I love being in the chat bar and being hey, who's here? Where are you from? I love this song. Yeah, let's sing along. You know, I don't know. I think it's special.
Yeah, it's a different experience, but like people enjoy the chat. And you're right. It's like,
don't we need connection right now? Like that's for me. I think that's a huge thing people are missing.
Yeah, it's evolving. And that I think that's the thing that scares some musicians and artists. It's just like it's too different. It's actually just thinking out loud, like, you know, you talk about like, you know, artists from the 90s and like those kind of recluse artists where like they're mysterious and it's hard to get a hold of them and like you don't know that much about them. And these days it's just like, you know, someone hops on Instagram Live and it's like, hey, I'm tying my shoes. And it's just like you're just constantly access to them. Or I tell bands and artists too, I'm just like, if you want to get a hold of somebody these days, you're probably 1 or 2 connections away from them. You know, be it Facebook, Instagram, DMs, or LinkedIn. It's like you can get a hold of them when like back in the 90s, you probably couldn't. If you didn't have their phone number or their mailing address, like you're up the creek trying to get a hold of them.
You're right. It is much easier now.
So I'm just top of my head here. Like, I'm just curious to see what artists look like in the next 10 years, where it's like the ones who want to be accessible and want to share and want to be open versus the ones who don't.
Do you struggle with that though? Because that is a constant struggle that I have as an artist on my own, as someone who making a solo record, but also in a band where there's 3 people and we all might feel differently about, say, the merch table, like, or, you know, constantly being on Instagram, like, hey guys, I'm going to buy groceries, or like, I don't know. How do you feel about that?
I'm very much of the you do you way of thinking. If you're, and this is my thing too, and I've talked about with some bands and artists when you talk about their online presence, I'm like, if you're just music all the time, I think that might get boring and it might get stale a little bit. So I say, like, find 2 or 3 other things that, at least 1 or 2 other things that you're passionate about, that you enjoy talking about, so that you as a person, as an artist, you have other angles to talk about.
Yeah.
Like gardening. There you go.
Yes.
Brendan, bass player in Test Machine. He's like, you get him talking about gardening. I'm talking about like pickles and peppers and stuff. And like, he's there. And I'm like, share that stuff. Like, we can have other dimensions. We don't just need to be music all the time.
Yeah.
But as far as like how much or how little people want to contribute, it's like, that's up to them. Like, I don't think you should force social media, because it's not going to come across genuine. It's not going to I don't want to say translate, but it doesn't work if you force it. That's my opinion. It just feel a bit natural, and, you know, I'm sharing the way that I want to share.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. Is like seeing the sincerity, and when I feel like I can really sense when someone's putting something on, you know?
Yeah, we have filters for that, I think, as people. We know when someone actually owns the Lambo or if they rented it, or, you know, and we know if someone's actually interested in something and when they're just, you know, they're just posing with it, or just.
Like, my brain went to Instagram filters, not to like filters like that. It's like we have filters for that.
Well, no, I think it's hard to keep it up.
Yeah.
You know, as far as like, if you're not being, you know, sincere, not being truthful with people, like how you actually are. Like, I do think too, it's another one of those left fields. I do think too, there's a little bit of avatarism when it comes to being a musician, where like that person we would like to be, the more successful we are as creatives and as artists, the more amplified that avatar can be, until one day maybe it just takes over who we are. If that does make sense, but the idea with Instagram stuff, it's like the idea of fake it till you make it. It's like, I don't think it really does work that well, because there's a lot of influencers and stuff on Instagram that last year they got destroyed because whatever edge they had to create that content, it disappeared. When you can't leave your house and you're telling everyone you're rich, or you're like busy doing all these studio sessions and all this, and like it just goes away. It's like it was, the rug was pulled from a lot of people on social media last year, except for the gamers. Yeah. The gamers are fine. Yeah,
they're all fine.
Anyway, and kind of end rant on that. But you're talking about, like, again, that how I feel about you know, artists and social media. It's like, find your platform where you can find your voice. Because I know some people that do a great job on Twitter because they like the conversation. Some people do a great job on Instagram because they've got an eye for things. Yeah, you know, and they can share that. So.
Yeah. And also I would say the other advice I have is, because we have to exist on separate platforms, is make them different too. Like give somebody a reason to follow you on Facebook and on Twitter. Do you know what I mean? If you can manage the time, because there's such a time suck for social media, but that is one of the things like I've thought a lot about, is also beneficial for bands if you can split that.
Yes, as your main account. Yeah. If someone's and that's we're talking about, like, you know, sharing job descriptions and duties and stuff like that.
Yeah.
If one person's good at one thing, let them run with it.
Let them go for it. Yeah.
Trust them, let it run with it.
Yeah.
There's so many things I want to talk about.
Go
We've been here for an hour already.
You're so sweet.
We've talked about the holiday tour, which was great. As far as like deciding to make a go of it, so you feel at the end of it, it was definitely worth it.
Yeah, the one thing I might have done is cut 1 or 2 of the Eastern shows. There was some competition for Eastern time zone shows, but they served a community. You know what I mean? Like the London show was for London, Ontario. It was in benefit of El Sistema, which is a London, Ontario organization that helps kids access music. Speaking of music lessons after school. And that felt really good. We have such a long-term relationship with that promoter, Aeolian Hall. I loved it. I loved the experience. I think that if we had maybe reduced the numbers of shows, we would have made more on the bottom line, but whether it would have filled our hearts the same way, I don't know. Doing 10 shows during a pandemic felt amazing. It's like, okay, we did 14 shows in 2020, which was crazy. Like that is not a normal number for us. I mean, not for you, certainly. But yeah, it was, I would have maybe done, 1 or 2 less shows in the Eastern time zone, but otherwise I was really pleased.
So it was net win.
Yeah.
There's a thing too, you're talking about just like, warming our hearts, filling our hearts. Like that's important too.
Mm-hmm.
I know it's good to have the bills paid. It's good to be able to at least break even on some of the decisions we make in music. But like, I still feel like that's really important. Like that's what energizes me when you hear people get really excited about the music. Excuse me. And like, know that you brought that entertainment to them.
Yeah.
For that hour and a half, it's like you kind of help them not worry about anything else and they can just enjoy the moment. Especially
in this year. You know, like taking that risk in this year felt right to us. And we were able to make it work. And we had such a good team. Like the audiovisual team was actually super exceptional. And the tech on site was so good. I was so delighted. Once we got set up in there, I was like, okay, we're going to be fine.
It'll be good.
Yeah, it'll be good. No old ladies unmuting themselves on Zoom. I'm going to be that lady someday, by the way. So
the VR headset on.
Love this show.
Touring. Early days of Good Lovelies tour. So there's the 3 of you.
Yeah.
Your first tours, was it just the 3 of you, or did you bring
Yes,
out?
It was the 3 of us for a really long time. Actually, we didn't bring anyone on tour with us until like year 3, maybe.
And what was your vehicle?
It was a Volvo station wagon. It was my mother-in-law's car. Actually, that's not true. It was originally.
So
but
true enough.
Colin and I got married, and my Colin is my better half, and we got married in June. I quit my job May 28th, June, and then June 7th we got married. And then June 18th, I went away for 2 months on tour with his car. It was a great time.
That was a plan.
That was a plan. And so, we road dogged it pretty hard the first couple years, just like playing whatever show. We would play whatever show. We would have 3 days off on tour and just like rough it, staying in band rooms. Just playing anywhere we could play. Bars, theaters, if they'd have us. Hotels. We played everywhere. It was awesome. It was a really great experience. It was right for that time of our lives, I will say.
You'll decide if you want to do it after something like that.
Exactly. Like you have to have it in your guts for sure.
Yeah, because it can always get worse on tour.
Yeah.
But yeah, you go out for a month, let alone 2 months. Like you'll know if you really want to do that, because you learn a lot about people too when you're on tour. Because as much as you think you might know your bandmates and your friends, go travel with them, and your rooms. You just had one room.
Yeah, a lot of time. Actually, the whole tour. Maybe there was actually there was 2 nights when I had my own room, but Colin flew out. So
that was different.
That was our honeymoon.
But that one room, because when you are like with people, like 24 hours a day, because I think some bands, you develop a way of giving people personal space, even though you're 3 feet away from them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because it's like you're there, but like you're not there.
Yes.
Sort of thing.
And it's hard in those early days when you don't know about touring. Like you don't understand touring. It's the first time you've done it. And depending on what your family was like growing up, you might have a really hard time not giving space. But those early days were really, I learned a lot.
Avoid this if you want. Were there any times, there's any times on that first tour where there was major differences of opinion, or like flare-ups, or major disagreements?
I wouldn't say major disagreements. I do remember, and I can only remember what I was feeling. I felt really lonely for home. It was the longest I'd ever been away from my home and my family. I really, really was lonely for home. And I think there was a certain amount of that. And also this realization that we had quit our jobs. And in those early days, we never paid ourselves from the band. Like even that first tour, everything was banked for the band. So there was this financial realization that we weren't making really anything on that tour. Like we were just doing it for exposure, for people, getting people to know who we were and to book shows in the future. And I think there was definitely that like, oh shit, we've done this. We are here now. And like, we can't just jokingly turn away from it at this point. I mean, Carrie had still had her job to go back to if she wanted to, but I'm kidding. She did, but I definitely felt that heaviness at moments on that tour. I don't think I remember big disagreements at that point. I think we all were really enjoying ourselves playing the music and learning about each other and learning how to give each other space. Like you said, Mike, that was a huge part of it. Yeah.
Well, it's good. It's positivity and negativity. They're both contagious.
Yeah. They are.
When you're on tour, and it's just that's a thing too. It's just like
you feel it in the van.
Yes. Even when things aren't great. Cause I always tell musicians, when they talk about going on tour first time, like everything is fine on tour until it's not fine. Everything's fine till you got a flat tire, you're about to run out of gas, or there's an issue with the hotel, or someone, actually this is a good segue, someone gets sick.
Oh God.
You got 3 singers in your band.
Oh yeah. Yeah, actually on that tour, I lost my voice for 5 days and we played the shows without my voice. Luckily I play a lot of guitar in the band, so I can kind of like be a side guy, play the rhythm. So I mean, I'm not standing there like, oh God, what am I gonna do? It's not like we're an a cappella 3-piece band, although we do some of that. That was really hard emotionally too. I've struggled up and down with my voice, not lately, because I learned what was going on after some years of touring with my daughter as a baby, like so many flights and traveling with my infant kids on the road taught me a lot about voice and health and sleeping, all those things. So, but yeah, losing the voice has been challenging. Sue's lost her voice before. Carrie has held on to her voice most of the time, but it's definitely challenging. We are also really lucky that because we're 3 songwriters, we can just load the shows. So if someone's not feeling well, like that is another benefit of our setup. If someone's not feeling well, they can kind of retreat a little bit in the show and rely on the other 2 to like do the banter thing and also play more leads, because there's always more leads than we can play in our full show. So there's definitely been some tours where we've had to move things around if people aren't feeling good.
You roll with it.
You do. You have to.
This is on my list. You brought it up a few times. Let's go there. Mom on tour. Bring in the little one on tour.
Yeah. It's a big part.
Where do you start with that? And how do you bring that to your bandmates?
Well, you get pregnant.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a step.
Yeah. So that's the first step. And then you have a full year of shows, like maybe the most shows you've ever had booked in that coming year. And you go to your friends and you say, I'm pregnant and I'm happy, of course. We were really excited. Me and my partner and I have been together a long time, and we always knew we'd have a family. I just didn't know what would happen at that particular moment. So it became pretty much the adventure of my life. And I don't think it would have worked. I've talked to many friends. I don't know if it would have worked if I don't think I'll be offensive in saying this, Mike. I don't think it would have worked if I was in a band full of dudes. I think there was like a beauty in the fact that I'd two other women by my side. I could shove my baby out if I needed a break. And like, we literally toured with a bass player, the three of us and my infant. And we did over 100 shows that year with her. Various points, Colin, my partner, came on the road. My mom came on the road. My sister came on the road. I'd hire babysitters at the venues. That was like, talk about logistics nightmare. Like, I need a pack and play. I need this backstage. I need you to find me a babysitter. I need their references. Like, it was crazy, but it was also a really beautiful experience. And I hope I wasn't offensive in saying that. I don't think it would work with a bunch of guys. Yeah.
No, but there's something that I do want to talk more in depth about touring with the child. But also, like, I wanted to bring up, because I've been on the musician side, I've been on the production side, and I've been able to hang out with some management and label conversations. Mm-hmm. And like, real talk, sort of present and old business model in music, not favorable to women at all.
No.
Especially the younger ones. Mm-hmm. It's like, if you're late teens, early 20s, it's just the idea of saying like, hey, everybody, I'm expecting your value to them drop because you're a product. Yeah. And I'm saying this from like the label and investor side, and they would never really admit this, but behind closed doors, this is what we're here for. Behind closed doors, this is a big thing because their investment. Okay, so she's going to have a kid, and then they're not going to be able to perform and make the money, and we take a percentage of that. So like that falls on their table and go, do we still want this? But the idea of saying, would it work with the band of dudes? I think it really depends on the band, but for the most part, they probably replace the artist or the musician, or they would probably pack it in, because I've seen it happen. Or even to get to the even uglier side, it's just like, women's bodies changing as they get older. And then
we could talk about that too.
And then feeling like, oh, well, it's not really valuable as an investment anymore. So like, let's just get somebody else.
Get a younger singer.
Get somebody else. So the idea, and where I'm going with this, because like, it's a really ugly, harsh reality of the way that the business worked. But with the modern, like, progressive business model where we're in charge of the money coming in and the money going out, we're in charge of the schedule that we set for ourselves. We don't have somebody or another team going, well, we don't think you can do this. They're just like, no, I'm saying I can do this, or I want to try doing this. And so the idea of you bringing a little one on tour, you can call that shot. Your bandmates can go, yeah, let's try and do this. Like, that's not a thing 15 years ago.
Yeah, it was, but it was done at the same level that we were doing it at. It was done with the folk families. It was done with but it wasn't, it wasn't in our faces. And I think, I think the thing for me, and I will look at this retrospectively and see a certain amount of stubbornness in myself, that I wanted to prove everyone wrong. I really did. I was told over and over again, you're crazy. I can't believe you're bringing that baby on tour. And well, I just was like, I'm going to do it, and I'm going to write about it, and I'm going to talk about it, and I'm going to show you what it looks like. And it was absolute insanity, some of it. Like, 14 flights in 18 days in Alaska with a 5-month-old, and like nursing my baby in airport bathroom stalls, and like insane flights to Australia with toddlers. And I mean, I wouldn't change it, but I also recognize that it probably wasn't healthy for me as a person to do that. And partly I did it because I wanted to say, fuck you to whoever was looking at me and saying, you can't do it. I did it because of that in part. Also, I wanted to create a sense of normalcy with women and children on the road, because there are a lot of women in our group, in our age group, who are having kids. And I wanted them to see that they didn't have to give up their jobs because they wanted to be moms. And so I just started talking about it really frankly. And again, I wrote this blog for a long time called Mom on the Road. And I had an amazing support network, which made it possible, including the band members. Like Carrie and Sue were incredible. The bass players we were touring with at the time were amazing. Ben Whiteley and Paul Matthew would both help me with the baby, and it just made it work. And I think that's the thing, is like, if you can make it possible on a rider to have a pack and play as easily as you can have to have like a 2-4 beer, like it's the same thing. Yep. You know what I mean? Like you just make it happen. And you're right. The infrastructure of our band allowed for it. There wasn't huge label saying, oh, you can't do it. And just sidebar, the first tour of that year had to be canceled because it was just too soon after I gave birth to do that tour. But there was definitely a 2-month period where Carrie, Sue, and I were having conversations about replacing me for that tour. And it was so painful and so emotional. And we all just came to this point and we were like, no, the Good Lovelies are not just going to replace somebody. It's not the point of what we do. So that was really hard and made our agent not happy. But we ended up making up those shows over the coming years. But yeah, it's a very strange place to be as a woman in that space and wanting to like provide for your family. But I'll also say at the mystical merch table we've been talking about, a lot of older ladies would come up to me and would say, I'm so proud of you for doing this. And I actually like expected a lot more of the opposite. Like, you're crazy. What are you doing, girl? What are you doing, girlie? And these ladies saying, I'm so proud to see you're doing this. And that made me feel like really, really good about that choice, even though I was very tired.
No, it's a thing. It was, there's a bit of I don't want to say it's a risk, but just a leap of faith. Again, like another one with the bandmates and the infrastructure and everything. And yeah, not to go back over it, but just like the way that the industry set up, the way that touring is set up.
Yeah.
Like it's not designed for that.
No.
It's rough. It's just the idea of even just one person trying to look after themselves, let alone trying to look after your family when you're on the road as well. But even to kind of tie it into where we are these days, it's like, being like, there's some upsides to being able to work from home, and the idea where you still have, like, I know you're probably some of the family stuff and the facial expression earlier, you talked about the homeschooling, and stuff like that, but just like having your family with you. And I wanted to touch on too, you mentioned the loneliness, and like, it's hard to describe that feeling to people when they haven't had that, because you're around people 24 hours a day for weeks on end. And it's like, all you want to do is hug your partner. All you want to do is like hug your parents. All you want to do is like see some of these people.
Yeah.
And like when you don't have that, and again, you can love your bandmates, but like it's different when like you're in a new city, every day. Like not to say you don't feel like you belong, but you just feel like a tourist. And then you're kind of lost for, 22 and a half hours a day.
Yeah.
Until you get on stage, sort of thing.
Mike, I think your touring the touring of the Lovelies has changed significantly in the last 5 years. We made some significant changes, like maxing out the time away, and just because it's not affordable for us to bring our families on tour anymore. They're like, as soon as they hit 2 years old, they pay a full flight fare. It's crazy. They're like, I am not taking my 3-year-old on tour to Australia. So yeah, we started like maxing out length, and also we have like really strong feelings around how many people are in a hotel room, like how we're sharing rooms. And so that's made it a lot. In a way, like touring now is very different than it was when I was doing 180 shows a year. Like now for me, touring is almost like an escape. It's like a place I can go and be by myself and with my pals, you know what I mean? So in that way, I just wanted to be like, that's where we're at with the Good Lovelies for the most part, for most of these tours. It's really nice.
And that was that like a, you know, another like page turning when you're just, everyone decided like, okay, like did everyone get their own rooms now? Like how does it?
There was a time when we were like, okay, we were on the road so much. We're like, this is the line. We all get our own rooms. And it was like, we just turned to our agents. We're like, cut the bottom line. We don't even care anymore. We want our own rooms. Put it in the deal. Anyways. And, but now we've gone back to like sharing rooms and making sure we're alternating. Our rule is really alternating who gets their own room every third night, you know, like sharing. That's the three of us. And anyways, yeah, it's actually, it's not the cheapest way to tour because sometimes we end up going back to places instead of just staying out for a month. But with the kids at home, it's really hard to do that. Yeah. Momming.
No, it's interesting, just the evolution of touring for bands. You hit a point where it's like, you know, you've done the grind.
Yeah.
Financially, can we do this? I'm glad we could talk about the, you know, parenting on the road stuff because I think it's really inspiring and it's important to hear from someone who's actually done it.
Yeah.
Because again, there's and the thing too, it's like sidetrack for a second here. I started teaching at one of the colleges here in Toronto, and we were teaching intro to recording and mixing. And there's so many female students, so many women that are in the course. And the thing that I try to make known is just like, again, accessibility to it. Before, I'm going somewhere with this, we can segue to another topic. Before we would go and record with somebody, and 99 times out of 100, you were recording with a guy. Someone that had the recording stuff. The guys always ran the studios. It was this male, like beyond male dominated industry, recording industry. And I'd kind of let people know, it's just like, you know, like real talk. If you're a black guy that likes country and wants to record your country songs, go ahead. A little bit less. If you're a white kid that wants to record rap songs, totally go ahead and do that. So the idea, like, you're not going to be judged going into these studios by the engineers. And you know the artist Grimes? Love her work. Got a little bit snubbed by Junos a few times, but it's like she just started producing her own stuff and started releasing it and started doing her own videos and started releasing it. I think it's really inspirational to know that like she had access to the gear. She figured out how to use it and she just started rolling with it. So I love having the female students in the class. I'm just like, this is the best time ever to be, you know, a female artist because like you have access to all this gear because before it was too expensive. There's too many gatekeepers in the way.
Yeah, you can just do it yourself now.
Yeah, at least dip your toes in and say like, is this something I really want to do? Because like, I'm sure a lot of vocalists out there, and they come from musical family and beautiful voices, but there's lots of people that don't know what their voice sounds like. So like, they don't want to go to a studio and try to record something or like record it into their, you know, phone or tape recorder and try to figure things out. It's like you can kind of figure some stuff out now.
Yeah.
With recording. But yeah, back with the females and women in music, it's just like, there's so many more opportunities now because you don't have to worry about what a boardroom thinks or trying to kind of serve up what you think your business model is and what your product is to them. It's like, you can just start building it however way you want. And, you know, this is probably going to sound harsh, but it's like, there's a lot of people in creative and in music, and behind closed doors, people would half jokingly refer to kids as dream killers, where it's just like, it hits a point where it's like, okay, well, this isn't really going to work because now they're going to be a parent. And it's so not like that anymore. And the idea of, you know, do you want to be a, you know, major artist and making $1 million a year, or are you happy making a decent wage, doing what you love and being able to be with your family still?
Yeah.
And it's like, I think that's important to know that like, it's okay to be able to find a way to make a living and still have a family and a home and some type of personal life.
Yeah, I think that what's changed for a lot of artists is that to make that living, they have to be on the road though. You know what I mean? Like there's some of us who are quick on our feet. I say us, but really like Good Lovelies, the majority of our income has been from playing shows and touring. So it's like, how do you take that? And we're even talking about it now. Like, how do you take that income and shift a larger percentage of it to, you know, income from streaming or income from, whatever form of art you need to make in order to bring a stronger percentage of your income away from touring. Because that's our reality right now, but that has become the reality in the last few years. So I think a lot of us are struggling with that and figuring out how to do that sustainably, but being home with family definitely has its benefits. And back to the dream killer thing, I will say that a lot of the time the dream killer thing is not said in relation to most male artists. I don't believe so. It's the women, and it's just seen 100%. As this burden is on women to like raise our children. I do think that's shifting as well. And that's not to say that there aren't dads who don't want to be away from their kids either. Like even my dad, he came off the road to raise us and to be at home with us and support us through teaching guitar at home. And that became his living. And yeah, we all have to make the decisions that we feel are best for our families and ourselves. And sometimes that means leaving the road, Thankfully for me, that hasn't been the case, but I've been lucky in that I can take shorter runs and still make a living at it, No,
it's an inspiring story though. So that was Mom on the Road. That's the blog.
It is, but it's gone now. So you can't.
It's gone now.
It's gone now. I just let it expire. I let it go. I mean, I still have it somewhere, but maybe I'll resurrect it someday.
Well, Netflix, if you're watching, there's a script ready.
There is a lot of
script
footage.
ready. Kind of ranty and then segueing into recording. 3 singers in the band. You all bring songs into the middle?
Yeah, so songs.
Walk through some of the writing and recording process for Good Lovelies.
Yeah, so traditionally songs will come to the table either partially or fully formed, like partially complete or fully formed. Sometimes they're co-writes with other people. And then what we do is we workshop them together. And it's interesting, like the songs sort of naturally weed themselves out, which ones will work for us. And then traditionally we've always gone into a studio. We've done like the big studio thing with a producer or two. And we'll slam everything into these big Toronto recording studios. In one case, we went out east and made a record with Dan Ledwell and like Echo, which was a really cool experience. And then mix master, and there it goes. And very, very typical, I would say, recording process in the big studios, and not a ton of home recording.
Well,
till now.
Yeah, till now. There's some upsides and downsides to the home recording. But back with the recording process. Say there's 11 spots. I'm trying to get the math in my head. Say there's 11 spots on the record.
Yeah.
And you want to split it evenly.
Yeah.
And you can't.
Yeah. So that's happened a few times, and it just sort of naturally comes to its end in a way. Like it's a song will work better than any other. It's not that song is better than whatever else. It's just usually we've recorded more tracks than what we're going to use anyways. And so as we're recording things, I mean, you've been through this process. Is where you like say you want to put 11 songs on a record. You've recorded beds for 13 to 14 of them. And it's just some songs are working and some aren't. And that's sometimes you just let them go for that reason. So you're right. On all our records, it's pretty split 3 ways. There's a couple records where one of us has an extra song than the other 2. And again, we share writing credits on everything. So even though one of us is singing lead, like I feel ownership over songs that Carrie's written or Sue's written. And I know they feel the same way too. In fact, we do a lot of weird vocal arranging where it's like I'm singing lead and then all of a sudden I'm singing harmony in a different spot on a song that I've written. And so we often joke about our voice leading is so strange. Like we're currently trying to track some of our songs to sell to choirs as like for choral arranging. We've had a lot of requests for this. It's a work in progress. We're still figuring out how it's going to look, but it doesn't make sense just to like strip my vocal from a record because in any given song, I might sing like a soprano 2 part and then like an alto part. Like it just doesn't make sense. So we have to go back in and re-record all our. It's ridiculous,
Well,
but
it sounds good. So you roll with it.
Exactly. Yeah.
I'm trying to find a way to word it. Because again, three singers, 3 songwriters, just balancing egos, you know, and like not to get too into detail about it, but like how does that work? And like, is everyone around throughout the entire recording process, or so like, you know, the Beatles where people just come in and record their stuff and peace out, or what's the process like?
Great question. Mostly we're there all the time, unless you're losing our minds. Sometimes these long recording, sometimes I just have only this much capacity for the amount of time someone needs to set up a microphone. I'm like, I get it. Like, God damn it. Why does it take 4 hours? So I think for the most part, we're there. There are times when someone feels the need for like intimacy to record a lead or to record a certain part. Like I've certainly asked for time to record by myself with the engineer, which is also, sidebar, a really fun part of recording from home, but that like ability to completely strip yourself of your ego and not worry about the people in the other room. That being said, some of my best vocals on records have come because Carrie and Sue are in the control room and they know me better than any producer or engineer and know how to coach me through that. So I remember one song in particular that's called I See Gold, which is very challenging to sing. And Sue was in the control room with our producer, and she like really walked me through that song. And I took a little bit of like, I had to let my ego down a bit too, because I was like, I'm not getting this. It's really frustrating. Anyways, it was actually so great to have her there. And yeah, that's the benefit of knowing each other's voices so well over the years too. So yeah. But yeah, we're all there all the time. It's that 3-3-3 thing.
It's tricky. Back in the before times, I would kick bands out when I'm tracking vocals.
Oh, really? Yeah,
well,
I get it. I know that feeling. Like,
yeah, it was up to me too. Like I wouldn't have bands around when we're tracking drums either. Because like I'm of that thought, you know, you ask a fish to climb a tree, and the idea with a lot of musicians, you ask them to do something that might just be on the edge of their ability. If they don't do it, and then everyone's, you know, head in hands being like, oh man, this isn't working. This isn't going to happen today. And with vocalists in particular, like unless the band really knows each other at that level and like they're kind of half paying attention because they know that they're fine, you know, and you ask vocalists to try something that might be a little bit outside their comfort zone, or there's a lot of weird face stuff with recording. I always like try to, you know, lift your cheeks and stuff. There's just weird stuff that you probably wouldn't do that live, but like recording, it's going to translate. So you do some of those things and just like,
let your face go. You'll sing better.
Yeah. If people feel like they look stupid, they probably won't try very hard with what they're doing. They don't want to do it. So I usually just kick people out. It's like, no, give me an hour and a half with the vocalist and
That's amazing.
It'll be good. But no, I was curious about that, just the vibe and the egos and stuff. Cause like, is there any times too where like, cause you're all, as far as what I see, everyone's multi-instrumentalist in the band. So like, is there certain instruments where you're like, you know, Carrie's better at this and Sue's better at that, and just kind of, you just go ahead and play this, but it's your song. So like, do you want to play the guitar? Do you want me to play it? Or
I think in the early days, we really stuck to like, this is my song. I'm going to play guitar. And I think we're letting that go, and it's making us a better band, frankly. Like, I know I've written songs on the keys, but I'm not a piano or a key player. Like I noodle and I figure out melodies that I like, but I'm not going to, it would be a detriment to our band if I played that live. So naturally I'm going to let Carrie do that. I'm never really going to play percussion on something. Like that's Sue's thing. And often she'll write a song and ask me to play it if it's fingerstyle or like a certain rhythm part that she's not comfortable with, because like that's better for the performance. So, and also like in recording records, I personally used to be really precious about always playing my parts. And I mean, I've become a much better guitar player 15 years later that I do play most of my own parts now. But in the early days, I really struggled with the idea of like letting a session player play my stuff, you know? But then I was like, why am I fighting this? Like, I'll just let this session player do it, and then I'll learn it to the best of my abilities to play it live. Like, that's fine. Like, I let that go for a while. And now I can often just play it myself, but the ego is a real thing. I think we do a pretty good job of it, and like staying humble and just being like, just being okay with the little insignificant errors, that are going to happen. It's cool.
That's important.
Yeah.
Like, nobody is perfect.
No
matter how much you practice. Because I will admit, I catch nothing in your shows as far as like hiccups and stuff. It just looks super. And the musicians you have on stage, they're killer too. So like, but I always try to tell people, there's the show that you're seeing, and then there's the show on stage.
Oh yeah.
And there's just
my favorite thing is like when there's a show that's just not going well, we finish and we're like, well, that was a show.
You get through it. That's the thing. Like, I've seen it. I've lived through it at times when you see people like have meltdowns after shows because but getting back to ego, it comes from embarrassment. They feel like they were embarrassed up there.
Yeah.
But you're just like, people were still applauding and had a good time. And it's just like, people will still come up to you after you and say that was a great show. Well,
I was just going to say, is you also can't look out at an audience and be like, this is how you're experiencing this, because you have no idea how they're experiencing it. We've had shows in, say, like the Midwest US where like the audience is not giving us anything. And then we've had the best merch sales of the tour. And people just at the table and they're like, that was amazing. It was like my favorite show. And we're just like, were we at the same show? Like, I don't know what happened there, but yeah, especially don't try to read people's faces because they don't realize what face they're making when they're watching a show. So that was a big learning experience for me.
All right. Well, we've got through the recording chat about that. I've had you for 90 minutes now. I'm through my list. I feel like I had a lot of things I wanted to chat about. The touring, having the little one on tour, the live streaming, how your 2020 actually went. Is there anything you want to shout out or anything you want to plug while we're here?
Well, I'm just like so honored you had me. It's so fun to have a long form conversation because you don't often get into it. You know what I mean? Yeah, it's awesome. It was really fun, and I also value your experience. You have such great experience on the road and running your band, and I know I've heard a lot of it over a beer here or there. So it's so nice to be here. So thanks for having me.
I feel like we chat, once in a while if you're picking something up or we're dropping something off, and then New Year's Eve. I did miss that this year.
I did too.
New Year's Eve dinner, because usually it's just like, well, big long table, the friends there, and then we'll kind of like have a half conversation and ask a couple things, and then we're back doing our thing. So it was nice. It was really nice to sit down for a better part of an hour and a half to chat about this.
I can't wait to see what we all get up to this year. I think it's gonna be a weird between year, and but it's gonna be good. I have hope for it.
I agree. I think we're gonna build on stuff last year, and I've been staying positive again. Like, I think we're going to get some touring back this summer, but I think next summer is when it's really going to come back full swing and people are going to feel comfortable going out and doing stuff. And I just think all the skill sets we picked up over this 24-month period is just going to make us stronger artists and musicians. And again, it's career minded. We rode the horses and made the saddles.
Yeah.
We got through CDs and we got into streaming, but we didn't think we would see the same thing kind of happen with live shows.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I will say that as a band and as we're looking at every single Christmas tour going forward. We will always be live streaming a Christmas show. There's no way we'll go back to not doing one. Why wouldn't we? Why wouldn't we play for the Australians?
Well, that's the thing. It's logistics. The idea where like you can be everywhere on the planet.
Yep. Yeah.
Somewhat comfortably.
Yeah. So nice.
All right, sounds good. Good Lovelies this year. You've already let the cat out of the bag as far as you got a live stream chat coming in the near future.
Yep. Keep an eye out. So goodlovelies.com. And then we're on all the socials. And I'm also on the socials at Caro Brooks Music too. So you can find me there if you want to come hang out. Hear about my gardening.
Sounds good. All right, I'm just gonna wrap things up here. Nice shirt, by the way.
Oh yeah, I should give a shout out. This is not a shirt; it is a dress.
That's a dress?
It's a dress, and it's from this amazing store in Collingwood called Red Sky Shop. So independently owned, and I will be living in it, also in my garden at some point.
I'm glad you gave that the shout out, because I remember that from the story.
Yeah,
that I did not share today, and I want to make sure it got a moment. Oh, before I forget, last question.
Oh,
how do you feel about people clapping on the 1 and the 3?
I mean, it happens. I don't love it, but there's a lot of band jokes about this, because Good Lovely shows have a lot of clapping on the 1 and 3.
It can hit the 1 and 3 pretty hard, but you know what? It does. But it feels good, you know?
You gotta let it go sometimes. It's just the right thing for that group of people.
Yeah, it feels good and not hurting anybody. Just go ahead and do it. All right. I'm glad I didn't forget that, because that's going to be a thing. Caroline Brooks, thank you so much. I'm just going to see you out in a second here. I'm just going to wrap this up. All right. See you in a minute.
Bye.
That was Caroline Brooks joining me tonight. Episode 18 of DearBands Live. I've been hoping to get Caroline on here for a very long time, because the touring alone, the touring stories alone, and again, bringing the little one on tour, we talked about that in depth. It's kind of, it would stop a lot of musicians, because, and I think Caroline, she made the point, like, it'd stop a lot of musicians because people would tell them they can't do it. And whether you be stubborn and just go ahead and force your way through it, or you find a way to make it work. And I think the modern business model that we're able to work with, where we're able to call a lot of our shots, having that support network within your band and in your community to be supportive. Because we said earlier, positivity and negativity on tour is contagious. And if you have people looking for solutions opposed to people looking for roadblocks, it's going to make things a little bit more enjoyable. Another key point from tonight too. There's three artists make up the core of Good Lovelies. One of the quotes that, and again, there's always egos, there's always push and pull, there's always people making sessions about things, but I always think of it as you're all on the same side of a boulder pushing it up the hill. You're not getting mad at somebody over something because you want to let go of the boulder and crush everybody. You're just trying to work together. You're all on the same team. So you're not going to be in a band together for 10 plus years if you don't have that mindset where you are a team moving things forward. The other thing too, Caroline brought up, I'm going to change the music here. I'm not liking this music right now. I can do that. It's my show. There we go. No, that's not it. The idea of splitting things in bands, the idea of Good Lovelies, there's 3 of them, so they split things 3 ways. One of my favorite quotes on how bands can succeed, it was U2 during an interview. And they said, "What's the secret to your success?" And they said, "We split our publishing." And they started laughing, the 4 of them. They've been in a band forever. So that's one of the things to keep in mind. Don't think that you're just getting more points on a song or more percentage on a song. And if you're a band together, you're all on the same team. You don't want to see one of your bandmates riding the bus and you've got the Lambo. So anyways, thanks everyone for joining us. I'll go through the comments later. Thanks for everyone joining in tonight. Episode 18 on DearBands Live. I'm Mike Langford again from heylangford.com and DearBands. Talk to you later.